where the Buckeyes are at in the ratings in the grand scheme of things. How much hump do we need to get back into the playoff picture? Is it possible? Anything is possible. In 2007, we lost the second to last game and climbed all the way up to the number one spot. So again, keep the faith. Things can happen. It's college football. So a lot of buzz around the Woody Hayes. A lot of transfer portal stuff happening today. Some interesting names. Do we have a new tackle coming in from the Big Ten to Ohio State? A lot of that I think is going to be coming the next week or so. With that being said, as always, we appreciate you guys supporting us. Again, if you guys have a question, a super chat is automatically answered immediately as soon as you guys do it. So that's a very fantastic system. It's been great for us so far. We appreciate you guys. If you guys could leave us a like, hit subscribe. Also, click that little alert bell. That'd be huge. Make sure you guys are ready to go for all of these live shows that we're pouring on every single night on Buckeye Scoop's YouTube page. With that being said, as always, shout out where you guys are watching from. And let me know, what percentage do you give us to get into the playoffs? I'm going to bring in my man who is always playoff ready, my good friend at Nevada Buck. Nevada, we've seen crazier situations. It kind of is, it's a weird scenario because like we're undefeated. I feel like we have a better everything last year, and our loss to Michigan wasn't as severe. You know, it's never good to lose to Michigan, but we lost by 6 on the road instead of 21 or whatever at home. But there's more doubt just because of the teams around us and in front of us and are playing this weekend. How do you feel? Can we get into the playoffs realistically? Again, I think we've got a good shot. I mean, Louisville could beat Florida State. We don't need too much help. If Washington beats Oregon, Louisville beats Florida State, I mean, we're pretty close. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a crazy college football year. I think college football's, is if nothing, it's been unpredictable in these situations. And I think, Ohio State's got, I mean, they've got a realistic chance of making the playoffs. I mean, is it a great chance? Are they a prohibitive favorite to make the playoffs? No. But, I mean, is it 30%? Or is it 1 in 3? Probably, maybe a little bit higher than that. It'll depend a little bit on, it'll say a lot today when the rankings come out. Where are they ranked relative to Texas? Because, the games are going to take care of themselves. Like Oregon, Washington, neither one of those teams is going to survive a lot. Like Washington cannot lose and then still make the playoff. Because Washington, anybody who's followed Washington knows Washington probably should have 5 losses, at least 4 losses. They're the most fraudulent, undefeated team in the history of college football. And, if they lose, they're gone. No matter what, don't let anybody tell you any different than that. I think where things get dicey is, if Alabama were to beat Georgia, where does that, what does that do to things? Let's hope that doesn't happen. And then Texas, it's interesting, Texas versus Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State by every analytical metric, Ohio State is better. Strength of schedule, game control, Sagan ratings. I mean, every one. So better loss, better wins. So would that be enough to get Ohio State in the playoff? I think it would, but we got to ultimately see the games we played up. I mean, the ideal scenario clearly would, and then obviously Florida State. Florida State's got to lose to Louisville. That's a 2.5-point game right now. So it's odds makers are viewing it as pretty much a coin flip game due to the fact that Florida State lost their quarterback. So Florida State's another team that can't lose and then still get the benefit of the doubt of getting in the playoffs. So a lot of it's going to be obviously it's going to be settled this weekend. But I think Ohio State's got to be ready because they could be back in this thing. And as crazy as it sounds, we could get another shot at Michigan again. So, buckle up. You never know what could happen.
Yeah, I think, again, like Florida State losing their starting quarterback, I mean, that's devastating. I mean, he was the guy that was right in the Heisman race. Really, really, really good player. Again, I mean, Louisville, they whooped Notre Dame. And Notre Dame had a rough stretch where they had to play all those night games in a row. And Louisville finally got them after they had a tough game against us. They obviously beat USC, who turned out to be really fraudulent this year. But, I think that just let the chips fall where they may. Again, if not, we're going to the Orange Bowl. Probably going to play Louisville or whoever. But I think that, I think there's a good chance. It'd be interesting because if we get in, like, we can play with anybody. I think that we're good enough to beat Georgia. We're good enough to beat Michigan. I mean, Michigan was a 6-point game at their place. So you go neutral site, it's a coin flip. But I saw all Big Ten came out today. The defensive team, JT2 Malowout was first team. Tommy Eichenberg was first team, won linebacker of the year. Denzel Burke was first team. Jack Sawyer was second team, which probably surprised some people that thought he was the worst defensive end in America. Were there any surprises to you as to where guys placed? I think Mike Hall was like third team, which they never used to do a third team back in the day. They used to just do the first two. But your thoughts on Tommy Eichenberg winning the linebacker of the year in the Big Ten?
Well, I mean, look, it's a great tribute to Tommy, and great career that Tommy's had. And it's probably kind of an indication it's probably a down year in the Big Ten at linebacker too. I mean, we've had years where, like, what was it, like the Paul Zielinski year over, was that over
Over
AJ Hawk? I
Over
can't
AJ
remember.
Hawk, yeah, for the butt kiss.
Yeah, so yeah, for the Butkus. So look, strangest things have happened in different years, and so I think everything kind of worked out the way that it should, and guys recognize. But for Tommy, it's a great, I mean, that guy, you couldn't ask for a better kid, a better Buckeye, anything that you want in terms of an Ohio State football player. That's what Tommy Eichenberg represents, and you know. It was really a shame that the last time that we saw him against Michigan, that it wasn't 100%. It was clearly going out there struggling, playing with one arm, and trying to give it the Warriors battle out there, but clearly was a bit impaired, and that was that's a little disappointing. But glad for Tom that he was recognized for his great play.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm going to put this on the board because Sandra Hutchins, this is a question I've gotten 100 times in the last 3 days. Are we good enough to beat Michigan? I'm like, yeah. I mean, we were throwing at the end zone with 20 seconds to go in the game, 30, whatever it was when we got we threw the pick. I mean Michigan, they're good, but they lost maybe their best player in their guard, who's he's going to be out for the playoffs. He's out for probably a few months with a broken leg, but I think we played him again. Like I really like our odds. If we're on a neutral field, especially, I think we've got, we made the horrific mistakes that cost you in versus equal talent. Like again, you can make dumb mistakes like throw a pick, basically a pick six versus Rutgers and Antarctica and Duquesne and teams like that. But like when you play like real teams like Michigan, you can't make mistakes like that. Those are Michigan played mistake-free, opportunistic football, which is a trussalism, but it's true. And their special teams were good, and ours weren't. So again, like in a game where you're playing equal talent, which when you're the coach at Ohio State, there's just not many games where you play equal talent. I mean, you get to the playoffs, you play Michigan. Maybe if Penn State is really up, like in 2017, they might be equal talent, but most of the time you outgun everybody you play. So, you just got to not, vomit all over yourself and you're probably going to win. But yeah, I think if we played Michigan again, I'd be very confident that we'd beat them. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
I mean, and I'm not trying to be like a Weisenheimer, but is that like really even a serious question? I mean, like I never thought for a second we were going to lose to Michigan, and I'll take one exception with one thing you're saying. I'm going to take exception with the All American on this. I don't think there's equal time. I think we're better than Michigan. I think they game plan this thing better. Their game plan was we're going to use 4 downs to run the ball to try to gain 10 yards. We're going to throw safe passes. We're going to throw it to the tight end. We're going to keep the ball away from dangerous spots, away from we're not going to let McCarthy be put in a situation where he could potentially throw interceptions. We're going to try to keep it safe for him. We're going to try to keep the game, the mistake free. We're going to count on the fact we're going to make all of our, we're not going to have any special teams gaffes, and we're going to see if Ohio State will make a mistake. And the only position I thought that they were better than we are was at quarterback. They have a better college quarterback than we do right now. McCarthy's a really good college quarterback, most notably because he doesn't make mistakes against us, and two, he runs the football and extends plays with his legs. And so that combination, I mean, that's what we are lacking. Nothing more, nothing less. And the fact, again, back to the first point, we were using 3 plays to get 10 yards. They were using 4 plays to make 10 yards. And, when you play a game that way, when you approach everything that way, I mean, they executed it perfectly. They didn't make any mistakes, and they won the game. But would I love a rematch? Oh man, I would love a rematch against that Michigan team. I don't think that's a great Michigan team. I think it's a very good one, but I don't think I compare it to some of the teams that and I don't want to be the guy go back in the Wayback Machine back to back in the '06 game, but that '06 Michigan team was a great Michigan. That's a great Michigan team. This was not a great Michigan team, but I digress.
Yeah, and again, like it's not just because like I played in that game, but just look at how those guys did in the NFL. Like Alan Branch played like 13, 14 years. David Harris was like a 10-year captain of the New York Jets. Jake Long was the first overall pick at left tackle. Henney just retired last year after the Chiefs Super Bowl. I mean, he was like a 15-year NFL guy. So, Manningham won a Super Bowl. I mean, they had like legitimate dudes. So, again, it's not like, oh, back in my day they were better, but those guys are like real guys, and when they had, I mean, Manningham was a freak show as a wide receiver, but again, it is what it is. I like the matchup. I'd love to get another shot at it. I'm sure our guys would too. Nevada, there's a lot of smoke around the Woody Hayes right now. I think that there's some guys that potentially could be in trouble. And I think it's really pending next week's selection show. As if we miss the playoffs, I think that it's like if we somehow sneak in as a 4 seed to the playoffs, I think it's, there's like one path. And if we, go to the Orange Bowl, there's another path. If we go to the Orange Bowl, I don't think we see Trey Henderson again. I don't think we see Marvin, Emeka, whoever. And I think some coaches get let go. If we go to the playoffs, I think, they're all there for at least another month. What do you think, or what are you hearing? Do you think everyone returns? Do you think there's going to be some turnover? Like, what do you think is going on in the Woody Hayes right now?
Well, I mean, we know. I mean, we know that. I mean, there's guys that are being lined up to be whacked. We know it. Um, for any unofficial confirmation that you need on something like this, you just look when you see the official Ohio State mouthpieces, the guys that just will not, they wouldn't, they just, they wouldn't say anything no matter what unless Ohio State is absolutely dictating to them what they say, and they start dissing on guys like Corey Dennis and Parker Fleming, then those are dead men walking, and you just know it. And so, you know, I would expect those two guys to be gone, and if that doesn't happen, I would be shocked. So I think from an Ohio State standpoint, you're going to see changes on the coaching side. I mean, you're going to see a mass exodus of players. It's going to be a whole bunch of new faces next year. I mean, you're going to lose, like you said, you probably lose Jack, JT, Tyleek, Mike Hall, Tommy, Steele,
Code,
Cody,
yeah,
Jordan Hancock. I mean, just like so many guys. But that's the
yeah.
fun thing about college football is just, you just keep going after it, and we've recruited well. You've got other guys that are going there and use the portal and do the things. And one thing I was thinking about today, and I put a little post on this on the board, but you know, the biggest thing that I've seen going into this Ohio State Michigan game, and the challenge for Ryan Day has been, how do we get Ryan to loosen up in this game and really play it, like he did the Georgia game last year, where he felt that he had nothing to lose and he could really let it all hang out and not be tight Ryan and how to do it. And one of the things is the expanded playoff next year, because the
Yeah.
expanded playoff is going to really lessen the impact of a loss in the game, for better or worse. That's just the fact. That's not a commentary. That's just a statement of the way that it is. So for Ryan, does that take some of the pressure off of him? Does that allow him to kind of go, you know what? I can really, kind of let a rip tater chip in this game. I think it might. I think it might, and I think it might, have that kind of an impact on him, and that might be something that's better. I mean, Ohio State fans have always put a huge impact on the game, and rightfully so. We know how important the game is to us, but the reality is, in the college football world, is devaluing that game. And so for us, we just got to get it into the right spot so that the game doesn't become kind of a dominator of us, like an inhibitor of us to success, because we're so wrapped up in the importance of the game that it keeps Ryan from calling the loosest possible, outcome. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. It's got a text from an Notre Dame insider website say that Marcus is going to make a big play for Brian Hartline, give him play calling and make him one of the highest paid coordinators in the country. But I'm like, Brian's not going to go there. He just let go of Chancey Stuckey, the receivers coach. But Brian's not going to leave Ohio State with J.J. Smith and Innocent Tate. You'd have to be insane to leave those guys. But hey, I mean, it's good. It's good leverage for Brian. I mean, if Notre Dame and A&M, all these schools start coming after him, like this goes, they get to sharpen their pencil with their renegotiations. I got some super chats coming in. Appreciate you guys. Corey Walls, thank you for the 5, my friend. Appreciate it. Do you think there's a difference if they have kept leaning on the run game? That 3-and-out before Michigan's 7-minute drive seemed to be a killer. Yeah, I mean, I just think you got to run the ball against Michigan. I mean, I know that the average yards per carry were almost the exact same, but they ran it more. But I just, I think in cold December games when you can run it and wear the defense down, that's how you win. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, I mean, look, with Ryan, in that sequence right there, he ran it on first down and then pass, punt, and we all know how the rest of the game ended up. So from Ohio State's perspective, they had just come off a drive where they had just bludgeoned Michigan on the ground, but it's really not in Ryan's DNA to stick with the run in that situation. And he sure as heck wasn't thinking in that situation, I'm going to run it 4 times and get a first down or something. And um, you know, I mean, that in a lot of ways that was Michigan's approach. Michigan's approach was run it and you go 2 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards, and all those are by advanced analytics, those are unsuccessful runs. But then if that leaves you a fourth down where you can run it for 3 yards, you make the play, or 2 yards or 1 yard, you know, they were able to convert and keep the chains moving and keep things kind of going on down. So, it was a very effective strategy, and one that look, Ryan's never going to be that guy, but he's got to get better at. I don't want any other coach than Ryan. I thought about this a lot. I'm like, man, if Ryan Day left, I'm telling you, for Ohio State fans, be careful what you wish for, because if Ryan Day left, that would be a real problem for Ohio State, because there are not obvious candidates that are like, oh, wow, we just get this guy and he's going to be better. Luke Fickell, Mike Vrabel, whomever. I mean, short of Urban Meyer, pulling out the cyst with a pocket knife out of his head and then running back in and saying, I want to be the coach for Ohio State. It would be a scary time to be an Ohio State fan. And so we just got to find a way for Ryan to loosen up and be good Ryan instead of tight Ryan in these big games, and hope he stays here for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, like, I love Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer is one of my favorite guys in the world. Him and Jim Tressler are like two guys that have meant a lot to me over the years. I love Urban Meyer, but and I'm not denigrating anything that he did, but he's not 51 anymore like he was when he took over in 12. This is another 10, 11 years. He's 62. College football is dramatically different now. The transfer portal is exhausting. Recruiting is never been worse. He's got to deal with roster management. He's got to deal with NIL. College football, coaching in college football has never been less desirable. The only thing that's better now is the money has gone up, dramatically. But you have to deal with kids with NIL, kids with agents. The parents are crazy. You could have, in theory, if you had a superstar freshman like Marvin Harrison and Jackson Smith and Jigba and CJ Stroud after that Rose Bowl a couple years ago, what's to stop them from going in the portals like a package deal and saying, hey, how much can we get for all three of us to go to Texas A&M or Texas? That's going to happen at some point. One of these guys is going to have a huge bowl game and hit the portal and show me the money, because that's kind of where we're at. But I think it's one of those. Here's the question I've been waiting for all day. Lord Vanderkush, the best name on the entire show. Appreciate you, my man. Thank you so much for the 5. Do you think Quinn Ewers as a QB this year would have been a surefire national champion team? Nevada, I'll let you take that before you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, no, look, that's kind of under the category of shoulda, woulda, coulda, oughta. A lot of things would have had to have break right. He'd had to have been really patient to be here in this situation. But yeah, had Quinn been here, would that have been helpful? Yeah, I like Quinn Ewers a lot, personally, as well as a quarterback. I think he's going to be a terrific, quarterback at the next level whenever he decides to go there. And I think he's outstanding. So yeah, that would have been fun.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like asking if CJ Stroud would have returned for a fourth year, where would we be at? I was like, well, we'd be the number 1 team in the country, and we would beat Michigan, because I think CJ would have been good enough to beat Michigan. I think Quinn, it's like one of those, you wonder what it would be like if he was leading the charge with his athleticism, his arm talent, his ability to scan the field, and the biggest thing is having Marvin Harrison and Emeka and Cade. Like, I mean, that's the best group of skill guys in the country. With Quinn, who I think would be a dramatic upgrade over Kyle McCord. Yeah, I think we'd win the national championship. I mean, Quinn's a guy that sees the big picture. He's got to come back for his senior year. He's underage just because he did the reclassification thing. So he would have been the youngest guy in the draft if he came out this year. So he's only started 20 games. So I mean, if you want to be a big time NFL guy, you want to usually get to 30 starts, 35 starts, which they could do. I mean, they could make the playoffs. They might be right outside. They might be the fifth team, but I think Quinn would be a huge upgrade. But he's going to be at Texas next year, and it's going to be funny because he might end up getting a win in Ann Arbor before Ryan Day because they go up there really early in the season. And I mean, Michigan, it's going to be interesting because Michigan loses Jim Harbaugh. If David Tepper from the Carolina Panthers goes after him and he golden parachutes out of there, like Michigan's schedule next year is no freaking joke. If you don't look at something terrifying, go look at they play Texas, USC. I mean, it is a monster schedule. So, Sherrod Moore is the guy there. It's going to be unbelievable. All right, Brian Legree, thanks for the deuce. Jim is Ryan Day's daddy. Pats him on the head. Well, I mean, Jim wasn't even there on Saturday, so yeah, I mean, maybe from the last two games, but I mean, Sherrod Moore beat him this past time, so maybe. Lucky and the Tucky 5. Thanks for the 5. Is Brady Quinn the Liberty Bibbity guy? I don't know what that is. What's the Liberty Bibbity guy? Do you know that, Nevada?
It's
like a commercial.
It's a commercial. Oh, they got Ohio State at 6 on this. They got them ahead of Texas. So Texas is 7, Ohio State 6. So that'll put Oregon at 5. I mean, look, from a playoff standpoint, they're ahead of Texas going in to that last weekend. It's going to be a question of whether Texas beating Oklahoma State is going to be enough to vault them over Ohio State in the rankings if things break down the way that we thought about. So that's the latest. That's pretty much where we thought that they would be, because it's really irrelevant whether they were 6. I mean, because the 5 and 4 is going to take care of itself with Oregon and Washington playing each other. So
yeah, totally agree. All right, well, that's good. So the Bucks got a shot at 6. Nicholas Smith, thanks for the 10. My question: why is Michigan allowed to even go to the postseason? They were cheating this year. Pretty sure that the last 3 years are going to get vacated anyways. That's a great question. I mean, I don't know. Nevada, your thoughts on that? I mean, Harbaugh's back for the championship game. It seems like it's kind of, I mean, the NCAA is obviously going to drop the hammer next year, but like right now, it seems like they're kind of skating a little bit. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, no, look, we live in an age where everybody wants instantaneous gratification on everything, and things have moved at a light speed. We actually had somebody say on the board today, they're like, well, it's because none of the people, current people have seen the NCAA do anything of any consequence to anybody in recent years. And I'm like, in July of 2023, the NCAA gave Jeremy Pruitt a 6-year show cause. 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So like that just happened like 3 months ago, but people, or 4 months ago, or 5 months ago, whatever it is, but I think people just have these things, there is a process. Things do have to work through the process as they kind of go along. And, things are going to happen in time. I mean, why do I think they're playing this year? I don't think they should be playing. I think they should have had to forfeit the games that they played where they were the benefactors of the cheating. I believe that was if that was within a legally defensible position, I think the Big Ten would have done that. But I think they felt that was just a bridge too far from a legal standpoint and couldn't pull the trigger on that. But will they go down in the future? Abso-freaking-lutely. They will go down. They will be a smoking crater somewhere in the future, whether multiple year bowl bans, lack of institutional control, and I mean, go read what Jeremy Pruitt got 6 years show cause for, and then compare it to what Jim Harbaugh is doing. I mean, Jim Harbaugh will be lucky not to get 10 years show cause, because what Harbaugh did was just exponentially worse. The Pruitt gave $50,000 in benefits to people in McDonald's bags and things like that. I mean, Harbaugh's lied. He's got an active NCAA investigation for lying. He's got, we could spend the rest of the hour just talking about the litany of offenses that he's committed. But No, I think Harbaugh's going down, and I know Michigan's going down, but no, it can't happen, soon enough. Or to be fair, it should be this year, but it's not going to be.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think that it's a process, but I mean, I remember like, Penn State got sent into the Stone Age with the Sandusky thing. Miami got smacked by the NCAA pretty good. I mean, it takes time, but when it comes down, it's not fun to be on the other side of it. Uh, Buckeye Ryan won it. Thanks for the deuce. Feels like plays trestle ball. Should we? Um, I don't think so. I mean, I think our offense is explosive. We just can't turn the ball over. I mean, I think the biggest differences between like trestle ball and what Ryan does is, like our guys just tend to make some mistakes and we're not good on special teams. Like with Tress, like we always had ice cold special teams that were good, and we didn't turn the ball over as much. But I think that I think we could be more physical. But I don't think that offensively anybody's like dying to go back to the days of most of the Tressel years. Like in '06, we opened it up pretty good, and we had Ted, and we had Gonzo, and we had Troy, and we threw it all over the place. But most years it was kind of ground and pound, and I think I prefer this offense because there's more deception. It's that we use more of the field. So I don't know. What do you think, Nevada? Should we go back to Tressel ball?
No, I mean, look, it's a style that fits Michigan. They have to play it that way because they can't recruit nationally. They're not going to recruit nationally for skilled players. They're not going to get a skilled, the elite quarterbacks. They're not going to get the elite wide receivers. They can't play that game. So they're playing the only game that they can that fits their style, and it's fine. And I think they've done a really good job of executing it. And I got to tip my hat to them in terms of doing that. But do I want to return to trust the ball? Not in 2023. 2023, the game's so much skewed towards the offenses that you've got to be ready to score in the 30s and 35s, in my opinion, to consistently compete for the national championships. And I think from an Ohio State standpoint, that's where we've got to be, and we just got to get better at doing what we're doing. And frankly, I this is like a public service announcement. Once a show that Nevada says this, but we've got to run the freaking quarterback. We have got to be less afraid of getting QB1 injured, and because we are killing ourselves offensively by doing that, especially in short yardage and the red zone by not running the quarterback, and that's just got to stop. And Ryan's got to pull his head out on that because he's got a blind spot on this one, and it's really, really hurting us.
I think part of it's just because he played quarterback. He thinks that they're made of porcelain and they can't run. But again, we watch guys that are worth $50 million a year in the league run, and they somehow survive and play. Publishing Inc. Thanks for the 10. Thanks for the film breakdown on the OSU lineman getting tripped. Yeah, Donnie Jackson got tripped by Carson Hinsman on the last play. And Marv last night. I wouldn't have noticed that stuff otherwise. Please do more of that when you can. Yeah, I love breaking film down. A lot of times you'll see like an offensive lineman get bull rushed, and sometimes they do get just crushed. Like they'll if you're going against like a Miles Garrett and you get your feet tangled up or your feet don't have the right balance, like you can get ran over and it can look terrible. But a lot of times guys get tripped, especially when they're on the interior. When you're slide protecting and a guy steps on your foot, a guy his feet are staggered and you get toppled. Like he looks like trash on film because everyone's like, oh, he got trucked, he got ran over, oh, he's weak, he's a puss, like whatever. But like in reality, like sometimes the guy just got tripped, and it sucks because especially when it's like literally at the least opportune moment of the entire season, like we're trying to throw to beat Michigan and it costs Cal to throw a pick, but it happens, And Marvin, like I didn't think he went hard on the play. I didn't think he ran the slant hard. It looks like for a guy that clocked the fastest, speed in the country, 24 miles an hour, whatever they clocked him out on the little GPS thing, like that wasn't no 24 miles an hour or whatever the number was, like the fastest speed. That wasn't that on that route. Like he dogged it on that route. And again, he's a great player, but it cost us. He dogged it. He could have broke it up. I mean, Kyle shouldn't have thrown it. Again, he was reading the backside linebacker. It's an RPO. Again, if he hands that, Trey gets 15 yards probably easily, but it is what it is. But I appreciate that. We love breaking film down. We're going to be doing it all offseason as well. Nick Koning, thanks for the 5. Can't wait to see this rendition of a postseason spring game with Devin Brown, 33, or Lincoln. I've had my share of 2023 Todd Beckman. Let the freshman play. Well, Todd was my quarterback in '07, and he took us to the national championship game. So Cal's got to get on that level, and he's not going to get there this year, I don't think. Nevada, with this bowl game, I mean, here's the thing. I think that, I know that this week these quarterbacks all want to meet with Ryan Day. Like, I know Devin Brown wants to meet with him. I know Kyle McCord's dad met with him today. There's a lot of stuff going on in the Woody Hayes. A lot of posturing and positioning and what's the story with my boy? Is my boy going to be the number one? Is it going to be a competition? Like, does he need to go? Because quarterback dad is usually a crazy guy, and usually he's like, he wants to make sure that his boy, it's like the dad from Varsity Blues, like he wants to make sure that his boy, has the best shot to start and play, and there's no impediments. So, like, I mean, it'll be interesting because like I could see both the guys staying. I could see both the guys leaving. I mean, it's a really like kind of a thin ice type of situation in the quarterback room, just because if Corey Dennis gets whacked, like you might have a new guy come in, and who knows who he'll want to bring in. I mean, Malik. I mean, I know that we've reached out to Malik Murphy at Texas now that Quinn Ewers is coming back. Like Malik Murphy is a hot property in terms of the transfer portal. But what are your thoughts? Again, it's just so crazy that Kyle McCord could potentially transfer after starting every game. And again, like some of it might just be posturing, but that's just kind of the world we live in now. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I just think it's football in 2023. I mean, your quarterback could be the guy that's returning. It could be the guy behind him, or it could be some guy from a completely different program that we haven't even considered. So, I think for Ohio State, they have to be ruthless, because it's clearly a position that we need to upgrade. Whether the upgrade comes internally or from the player getting better, or from a player behind him getting the chance. But again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but Ryan Day stopped running Justin Fields. Ryan Day stopped running C.J. Stroud. Ryan Day didn't run Kyle McCord. So this is a Ryan Day issue as much as it is a quarterback issue right there, from my perspective. Now, there's other things that come along. Yeah, if you just have a guy that's just such an obvious talent, maybe you'll let him go. But maybe I just think that we need a fundamental different approach to the way that we're playing, which is we just can't be afraid to lose, man. We can't be afraid to lose. We can't be afraid to get guys hurt. We can't be afraid of making mistakes. And I just, I really thought Ryan had got there after the Georgia game. I thought the Georgia game was an epiphany for him, that he saw, wow, look, we can play with anybody. We almost beat Georgia for the national championship by just letting it go. And, for some reason, he didn't embrace that as fully as he might. So, look, we can talk about all these different quarterbacks and all these things, but we need a philosophical change as well. And maybe that comes from an AD change and somebody who has a different kind of a relationship with Ryan Day or whatever. But something's got to. And again, maybe back to my original point, maybe it's the expanded playoff. Maybe the expanded playoff, just because let's face it, as an Ohio State fan, you pretty much know now with the expanded playoff that we are going to be in the playoffs virtually every year for the rest of your life. I mean, the chances of Ohio State being out of the top 12, I mean, it could happen, but it's been a very, very long time since that's happened, and probably not likely to happen again anytime soon. So, we're always going to be there. It's just going to be a question about seeding and who we're playing, but you're going to have to beat them all anyway. So, from an Ohio State standpoint, maybe this enables us to play this looser and not be so stressed in these big games, and we'll see if that's the end result.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Ryan's philosophy has to change. Again, I've talked to people that know him very well in the last few days, and how tight he is in the off season and like in the season is almost crazy. I mean, it's like, I've talked to guys that are, they don't know him exceptionally well, and he is like, it's insane how tight he gets, and then it reflects on the team. I think he gets anxious. I think that he's easily rattled on the sidelines, which is why he goes after the officials like crazy, and he always looks flustered, and he's screaming at the players all the time. And, like Urban did that stuff, and, and Trust to a much lesser degree did it. But, I think that, having a little bit of a demeanor to you on the sideline isn't a bad thing. Now he coaches hard, which is great, but I also think that he gets very, very tight, especially in big games. And I think as we get into the 12 team playoff, like it's just going to be keep surviving. Because I mean, like the last few years, we'd been in the playoffs every year. Like I mean, I don't know if we would have ever missed the playoffs other than the 11 season. We're usually finishing in the top 10 by the end of the season, but it's going to be fascinating to see how this quarterback thing plays out. Because if Corey Dennis potentially gets whacked, and then you've got, they're shopping for quarterbacks like the Washington State guys in the portal. I mean, if Malik Murphy jumps in the portal because Quinn's coming back for another year, do we shop? Because I think that, if you're Mark Pantoni and Ryan Day, you got to be sitting there thinking that, well, these quarterbacks, I mean, one or both of Devin Brown and Kyle McCord are going to transfer. Because I don't know if if you're Ryan, if you can lie to Devin Brown and say, well, there's going to be an open competition again, and then in reality, like there is no open competition. Like I mean, it's like I mean, Devin, was good in camp, and then all of a sudden, he played like 50 plays or whatever all season, and that was the Kyle McCord shit, which is fine. But if you're Devin, like you want to go play somewhere. Like you're not going to sit here and hold the clipboard for another year and potentially get passed by Lincoln Keenholz or Aaron Noland. So it's going to be fascinating. And it'll be interesting to see if they really do ice Parker Fleming and promote James Laurinaitis, because I think that would be a massive upgrade in that position. Because I think James, you remember, James was a fantastic linebacker. He was a great special teamer earlier in his career. I mean, when you're a freshman linebacker, the thing about linebackers at Ohio State is great linebackers don't redshirt. They run down on kickoff. They run down on, they're on punt coverage. They're on punt return. They're on kick return. Like they're playing and doing like special things on Saturdays. They don't redshirt. So James was one of those guys in 05. He didn't redshirt. He played all the teams. Obviously, Bobby got his leg broke by Jake Long, and then James was out there in the Michigan game. So, and I just think that Parker Fleming's background is he's a quarterback. He never played special teams in his life. So I think James will be a big upgrade there, especially on the recruiting trail. Nevada, as we get into the transfer portal, Carter Smith is a kid that literally was formerly of Indiana. He played against us last year. Had a nice game against us. Like, didn't give up any sacks against JT and Jack. I think he was exceptionally nervous, is what I was told, going against those guys. But he held his own and gave up like 2 sacks all season, started at left tackle for Indiana. There's a really good shot I think we get him. What are your thoughts on getting a kid? He's from Olentangy Liberties, like literally right down the road from where I'm at. But, I just wonder, because he's a kid that we passed on for a bunch of guys that are in his class. And most of those guys in his class that are at Ohio State, like Tigra, George Fitzpatrick, like those second-year guys, they haven't played at all because they're behind older guys, as opposed to going to like an Indiana and starting early. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because again, I think if Carter Smith would have committed to Ohio State, he probably wouldn't have played yet. But we're gonna take him because he started a year at Indiana and played well. But like, how does that like roll around in your head when that's potentially what we're gonna do? Because when we do that, we'll lose some of the second year guys.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of the conundrums. I've always believed that the players that you should bring in via the transfer portal should be can't miss, guaranteed start kind of players. And talking about things like Justin Fields or even Josh Simmons came in and started at left tackle and didn't give up a sack, or Jonah Jackson or somebody like that. Or Davison. Now is Carter Smith in that same type of situation? I mean, look, Ohio State's they have enough tape on him to know. I mean, what concerns me a little bit is the Victor Cutler experience, because like we brought him in as a transfer portal guy from Louisiana Tech or whatever it was, and never sniffed the field, couldn't play. So yeah. It gives me a little question about our evaluations, because I do think if you're just willy-nilly just throwing out these opportunities for people to transfer in, that you kill any type of chemistry or whatever you want to call it inside the room. So again, I always believe do it for people that just can't miss. Well, we did it for Victor Cutler. That's the opposite of a can't miss. That's a can't hit. So yeah, I just think that you just got to be very careful. I think you've got to be aggressive. You've got to be trying to upgrade every position on your team. but it's got to be a clear upgrade. You can't bring in a transfer portal quarterback to have Kyle McCord part two. You know what I'm saying? Because if you have that, then what have you really accomplished?
Yeah, and I think it erodes at your culture when you try to bring in guys as high school freshmen and develop them, but then you go bring in a guy that was in the same class who was ranked lower than him because I mean Carter was rated lower than George Fitzpatrick and Tigra and the guys that we took, but he went and started at a lesser school on a team that fired their coach. They weren't real successful, but he started. He's got film. There's film of him blocking Jack and JT, and he did fine. But it'd just be interesting because, most guys mentally having been in the seat of like a guy who's a freshman or a guy that redshirted is kind of waiting their turn, developing in the program. When all of a sudden, like you bring in a guy that's going to just supplant you, it's demoralizing. And I think that when they do that, the law of unintended consequences is that you'll have guys from that same class go hit the portal. Like a guy like Tiger could hit the portal. A guy like there's those second year guys that you're going to bring in Carter Smith. Well, I'm going to go to some big time school that wanted me when I was coming out. So, again, it's going to be fascinating to see because I'm hearing a ton of rumblings about guys hitting the portal, who actually goes, who's just blustering. But there's a lot of guys. I always talk about how there's 120 guys on the team by this part of the season. 50 of the guys are unhappy. So, and now you can actually do something about that unhappiness with the transfer portal. And then you layer on the top that some of these guys can make some money transferring. It makes it all like a whole different ball of wax. That's why, with Urban, I just don't know if you don't want to deal with all that. Just because kids have freedom now. They're not locked in. They're not clamped in. And back in the olden days when I played, if you transferred, you had to go play scout team for a year and sit out for a year. So that was a pretty stiff penalty that, I don't know if they should bring that back, but it was a way that most guys didn't transfer from 1A to 1A. Then they took advantage of the graduate transfer deal. Expedition Greg, thanks for the 5. What's the percentage of us making the top 4 being at number 6? Nevada, I'll let you start that one off.
Well, I mean, they showed a thing where I think they showed it at like 9% or something like that, but I think it's higher than that. I think it's higher than that. I really think it's as simple as if Georgia beats Bama, because first of all, the committee's got to look at Alabama right now and kind of go, they really should have 2 losses. There is no way they win that game against Auburn 1 in 1,000 times on a 4th and 31 play where Auburn decides to have 3 guys stand at the line of scrimmage and just literally not rush, and then they throw it in the back of the end zone for the touchdown. And I don't think they were that impressed with Alabama's win there. They kept them at 8. I mean, for Ohio State right now, I thought one of the things that was really interesting about the committee rankings is the committee ranked Penn State number 10. So think about Ohio State right now. Ohio State's got, so say we're in a contest against Texas, and Georgia beats Alabama. Okay, let's just say that, right?
Yep.
So if Alabama's number 8 this week, where are they after a loss to Georgia this week?
Oh,
15, 12, 50, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Well, so we'll have a better so Penn State will have a better win than anything that Texas has, and our loss is against number 2 on the road, 1-score game, and their loss is against Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And then you go to game control. We've talked about Ohio State had 2 close games all year: Michigan, Notre Dame. 1-1, lost 1. Texas has like 5 close games, 3 in a row, including 1 in overtime. So it's like, I just, I think their chances are better than, I would say that they're probably about 30%. And what we want to have happen, I mean, in a perfect world, Georgia beats Alabama, Florida State loses to Louisville, and Oklahoma State finds a way to upset Texas, and then we're in. But I think even with just a Florida State loss to Louisville and then Georgia beating Alabama, I really think we're going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. I mean, again, Florida State losing their superstar quarterback that's huge. And then, the guy got beat up a little bit last game. They had Brock Glennon there, who was committed to us at this time last year as a freshman. So I mean, that quarterback isn't anything special. I mean, that Florida team they played was the most undisciplined team I think I've ever seen in the history of football. They're like the Hurricanes in the '80s with no talent. But like I said, I lived this in '07 where it was like we needed like 4 teams to lose, and by some majestic deal, like they all lost, and it wasn't like these were even close. Like we had to get up to number 2 to get in. And sorry, as I'm just tweeting out our show so that people can join us. We had to get up to 2, and there was no like 4, and it wasn't like the quarterback was hurt. Like, I mean, we had to have Oklahoma beat Chase Daniel in Missouri. We had to have Steve Slayton and Pat White, who were like number 2 in the country. That was when like Rich Rod was killing it with the spread offense at West Virginia, and they had to like lose to like 4-6 Pitt or 3-6 Pitt or whatever. They were terrible. But it happened. So, I mean, it's college football, guys. I mean, like I said, Louisville, they went out and beat Notre Dame like worse than we did. So I mean, they're not like, it's not like there's some dog pile. I mean, these conference championship games is the 2 best teams, and the best team from each division in each conference. So, it's not like it's some, they're not playing, Boston College or something or some terrible team. They're playing like a legit good team. Nevada, as we get into this, it looks like Kenny Guyton might be either out of a job or going back to wide receivers coach. Bobby Petrino is going back to Arkansas. If Ryan Day would move on Corey Dennis, like some of our favorites are, I don't know if Kenny would be in consideration as quarterback coach, but JT Barrett is a guy that's getting a lot of smoke working for Detroit right now. He's really doing a nice job. Obviously, I love JT Barrett. I know how you feel about JT Barrett. Who are some guys that maybe you potentially could see, or do you think Ryan just goes completely out of the box and interviews guys and just goes and picks a guy to be the head coach of the offense?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question. And I think it'll tell us a lot about kind of where Ryan Day views this whole thing. And, will he go for like some, unnamed NFL guy? I mean, I always go back on these things. These things are always the toughest thing. And because if people are honest, and I've asked this question many times, and, when people are honest, I think the answers are pretty interesting. But the question that I always ask is, when we hired Tom Herman, how many people had ever heard of Tom Herman before?
Nobody.
Yeah, okay. And then when we hired Ryan Day, how many people had ever heard of Ryan Day before?
Even fewer than Tom Herman. Fewer.
yes, fewer people than Tom Herman. Whatever X is less than Herman. So, and that guy ended up being our head coach for Ohio State. So,
dude, I mean, Ryan Day was on the breadline. I mean, he was out of work. I mean, it wasn't like we went and poached him. Like, Tom Herman, when we took him from Iowa State, like he just beaten that Oklahoma State team that had, oh God, who was that receiver? It was Justin Black. I think they had Justin Blackman, and they had the like 30-year-old quarterback who went to the Browns, Brandon Whedon. So they go up to Ames, Iowa on a Thursday night, and they had that horrific tragedy. I think it was like some of their girls' basketball team, like the plane crashed, and it was terrible. And so, the team was a little bit of a fog, and they go play in Ames, Iowa, and Tom Herman like lit them up. Like he lit up Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, I think, was number 2 in the country at the time. And so, that was a big, big win for Tom. And that was kind of the game that put him on the map, for Urban. Again, like it's funny how, all of a sudden you hit that grand slam home run in the right moment, and all of a sudden you're on that radar, and Urban's looking for an OC. And like, because I mean, when we hired Tom, like I didn't know him, and I'm like, the best we can do is a guy from Iowa State. Because we were talking about like Chad Morris from Clemson, who ran like an awesome offense, and we studied him. I was like, God, that'd be awesome. I'd love to learn that offense. And we bring in Tom Herman. I'm like, who is Tom Herman? It was weird. And then he got there, and like, his system was pretty good. And Urban bought into it, and it ended up working wonders and won us a national championship. So, again, for whatever people say about Tom, again, I know a lot of people don't like Tom Herman, but I mean, I was okay with him, and when I worked with him, he was fine. I mean, we got into it a few times, but it is what it is. If this is really Philly Brown, that is amazing. Thanks for the 5, Philly. If that's really, I can't tell if that's you. That looks like it's you. Congrats on everything, Philly. You're one of the great players at Ohio State. You're one of the fastest dudes we had for sure. He was the rookie of the year in 10. Great kid. That'd be awesome if that really is you, Philly. I'd love to have you on the show sometime. But like Ryan was on the breadline. Like he'd gotten fired in Philly, and then him and Chip went out to San Francisco, and and his quarterbacks were like Blaine Gabbert, Kaepernick. I was like, those are the guys that like those. That's our new offensive coordinator and tutor. Like it wasn't like he was coaching like like some perennial Pro Bowler superstars. I mean, he coached Bradford in Philly, and then he coached like Kaepernick and Blaine Gabbert. And I'm like, that's our guy now. Like that's going to be the new wizard. I was expecting like you get some guys got a bunch of Pro Bowlers and whatever. But and again, and he was fired. He was looking for work. And again, there's nothing wrong with that because in the coaching profession, like I always tell you guys, if you haven't been fired, you're gonna get fired. That's the beauty of coaching. Is like it's not just all roses and $1 million contracts. Like you get whacked a lot in coaching. But he got here and I mean the interesting thing is when it came time for Urban to step down, like Gene was the guy that really wanted Ryan Day. I mean Urban was like should we kick the tires a little bit and see what is this is there any search or anything? And Gene was like nope, Ryan's my guy, and promoted him, and that was that. So it was always interesting. Like we didn't interview anybody. It was just like, okay, this guy's been an OC for 2 years, and here's the whistle, big dog. Go have at it. And he's done a nice job. I mean, but that Michigan deal is glaring, and we haven't done great against teams that have equal talent. So we get to the playoffs. I mean, we beat Clemson. In the playoffs, you're playing the big dogs, so I get it. It's tough, but that's probably the biggest knock on them. Nevada, as we keep rolling.
Let me just say one thing.
Sure.
Before Tom Herman got hired, I had actually heard of Tom Herman. Like I do this for a living, and so like I try to be pretty familiar with the guys that are out there and the names and stuff like that. And so I had at least heard of Tom Herman. I'd never heard of Ryan Day. Like Ryan Day's name had never come across my radar at any level before he was announced as the offensive coordinator of Ohio State. So that's how obscure he was. And I just think it's funny how he goes from obscurity to head coach at Ohio State in such a short period of time. And look, we're heavily dependent. We need him to be better. All of us need him to be better. Former players need him to be better to preserve the legacy of everything that you guys brought before us. And the fans want him to be better so that we can maintain our sanity and beat the hated rival. Let me say one other thing too. Minter coming out after the game or whatever it was with his little waving bye thing or something.
What a douchebag! Are you kidding me? Have you never done anything in your entire life? Really?
I mean, can you imagine like Jim Knowles going out there and like waving goodbye or something? I mean, like that just sums up Michigan. Like Michigan, you have your moment, you win your game, you do your thing, and then you're going to come out like you are such a low class, disgusting program. It's like and no matter what happened, no number of wins or whatever is going to take this thing away. You guys just suck. You're disgusting, and that's who you are now. You guys used to be this blue blood, this part of this college football elite, and now you're like this little thug. That I mean, no, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing what Michigan has become. I mean, just like if I was a Michigan fan, seriously, I'd be like, oh my god, what is this? How did we become so disgusting?
You're just like, I mean, that was like, I mean, because like again, I've won up there twice in 05 and 07. Like 05, like I went over to our student section, waved the flag a little bit. I didn't plan it. I didn't blow kisses to the fans or wave at the fans. Cause like, dude, like who cares? Like, are you that big of a douchebag? He's such a douchebag. Like, and his dad is actually a decent guy. His dad coached at Cincinnati. He was a head coach there for a long time. But like, what are you doing? I saw that and I was like, why? Cause you're like 38 years old and you beat us by 6 points because our guy got tripped and we couldn't throw something. I don't know. But I just like, but again, I eventually that comes back around again because they talked all that trash last year, and then TCU ran the train on them. And it's like you guys see train day. It's like you know what a train is, don't you? That's what happened to TCU. So when these guys go to the playoffs, and all of a sudden they got to go see Georgia or one of these teams, and they whack them, like because I don't think Michigan's very good. I just think that we made mistakes. We didn't play great. And I'm not trying to like denigrate it, but it's just like we made mistakes and it cost us a game and it stunk. But I'd love to see those guys again, especially if the guys are at full steam and they're feeling good and ready to go. Because I just think that there's a lot of potential for these guys to do the damn thing. Because I mean, it's a 6-point game in Ann Arbor. Like, what's it on a neutral field? Especially if there's good climate, it's warm. I mean, that's advantage of Bucks because we're the high flyers. And again, we just made dumb mistakes. We missed our field goal. We were tight. I just think that there's a lot of meat on the bone. We got another super chat. I'm gonna get to that. Thanks, Poohbeard12. I always love saying that name. That's a hilarious name. So thanks for the 5. In what ways do you think us having a new AD next year will affect our coaching staff hiring and NIL use? How will that affect Day's job security? Well, I'll let you take that first, Nevada, and then I'll take a crack at it.
Well, what was the question exactly, so I can be responsive to the question?
How and in what ways do you think us having a new athletic director next year will affect our coaching / staff hiring and NIL use? And then the second question is how will it affect Day's job security?
Well, I think it depends on on who they bring in. Look, I am not a fan of Gene Smith. Never have been a fan of Gene Smith. And let me tell you, it's not because I've read something in a book about Gene Smith or because Gene Smith was replaced on that play by Rudy Rudiger on that thing where the guy slipped and he ran it there and tackled the guy. That's not why I don't like Gene Smith. I don't like Gene Smith because I've had personal business dealings with Gene Smith where he's not honorable. He's not honest. So that for me is where I'm at with Gene Smith. So not a fan. So Gene Smith being gone to me is not a bad thing. I think it depends on who they bring in. Do they bring in somebody with Ohio State ties or Big Ten ties? I mean, frankly, the fact that Ohio State brought in the president that they did was absolutely shocking. I mean, after a series of just like destructive hires, like almost like they were trying to bring the school down to its knees, starting with Holbrook and going on to Drake. And I mean, just one after another of just you talk about those fights and the body blows. I just felt like I was taking body blow after body blow. And then they bring in this guy and I'm like, are you kidding me? How did this happen? It's like I'm at a different school. So I just hope that they bring in a good AD, a strong AD, dare I say, a guy in the mold of more of an Andy Geiger, giant of a guy AD as opposed to an empty suit like Gene Smith. But that's my hope. I think if that helps, because look, on NIL and other things, we need some help, man. Our NIL stuff is
bad.
It's not good. We're on the ropes, man. We're on the rope. We're not executing at a high level on NIL right now. I'm just telling you. I'm not trying to sound the alarm. I'm not trying to say that Rome is burning or anything else like that. But I'm just telling you, from an NIL standpoint, we are not hitting on all cylinders right now. And I think it's going to be one of the big challenges. As big a challenge as it was for Geiger to go through his $1 billion facility renovations for all the facilities at Ohio State, I think addressing NIL has got to be the number one concern for the new AD, because right now it's a clown show, and in 2023 you can't afford to have your NIL, your football NIL specifically, being a clown show.
Yeah, Philly, if this is you, dog, let's do a show. I'd love to have you on here. You hit me up. I think you're on my Instagram at Kirk_Barton, but let's set it up. I'll get you on here and interview you. Hope you're good. It looks like you got a little kid. Hope you're good, brother. Appreciate you, big dog. I think, for me, the athletic director, it'll be huge. I think that honestly, Ryan will have less job security because, anytime you bring in a new AD and you didn't hire that guy, it's kind of like bringing in a new general manager with an incumbent, football coach in the NFL. Like, there's no loyalty there. So it's prove it every day. And again, I'm not saying Ryan's going to be on the hot seat, but, I mean, a lot of these ADs, they've got good relationships with coaches, and, some like to make their own stamp on things. I think it'll be interesting to see, if it's Pat Chun, who was there when I was there, and he was kind of a nobody when I was there, and he's kind of risen up the ranks. He's bounced around to, I think he's in Washington State now. Does he want to upset the apple cart? Does he want to put his own stamp on things? He was very tight with Luke Fickell, but I just don't. I love Luke Fickell, but he didn't have a big year at Wisconsin. I don't think he would be an upgrade over Ryan Day. I think the biggest thing with Ryan, is people are like, fire Ryan Day. And I'm like, okay, well, who do you want to hire? Mike Vrabel? Well, Vrabel hated coaching college football because he hated recruiting, and he's 3-7 this year, or maybe 4-7. I think they won on Sunday. Fick didn't light the world on fire at Wisconsin. He was great at Cincinnati. I don't know. And again, obviously, Ohio State's a different beast because if you go to Ohio State, you're going to win 11 games every year just based on your talent. But I just, it's this is not like when they whacked Jim Tressel and 51-year-old Urban Meyer sitting, on the sidelines after winning 2 national titles and dominating the SEC. That makes it a lot easier because these athletic directors are only as faithful as their options. So if all of a sudden you got Urban Meyer clawing at the door and say, let me in, and you've got this kind of this this carcass that is these infractions and tattoo gate and whatever, and you put a bullet in it, like that made sense for them to do at the time. And Urban took us to a different level, and it is what it is. But I just I don't think going from Ryan, well, I'll just ask you, Nevada, does going from Ryan Day to either of those two, is that a lateral move? Is that a step down? And again, I don't think Vrabel's attainable. I think Vrabel's an NFL guy. He played in the league for 15 years. Like, if you could be an NFL coach, do it. It's way better than being a college coach because, like, you work about you work hard. I mean, being a coach is a very difficult job, but you don't have to recruit. You don't have to worry about NIL. You don't have transfer portal where guys can just randomly leave. There's a lot more stability and frankly a lot more downtime in the NFL. So I don't know why anybody in the NFL, and plus, like, Vrabes is probably gonna be up for the Patriots job if they don't go with Gerard Mayo when they can Belichick after this year. Vrabel will probably be the number 2 guy there. So I don't know. I mean, he's a head coach of the Tennessee Titans, and I don't think leaving the Tennessee Titans to go to Ohio State is. I think that's a step down because, like, you get to live in Nashville and coach an NFL team. I think that's a better life than being the Ohio State coach. Because again, I love Ohio State. I think Ohio State's great, but you see what Ryan Day and his family and everyone's dealing with right now. Like, they lost 1 game by 6 points this entire year, and everybody wants them fired. So I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
I don't think that there is a more difficult job in all of sports than college football, big time college football head coach.
Yeah.
And I think, as you said, I mean, the quest for perfection has always been there. You've always had to run the table and be perfect, and that pressure is completely consuming. But now you throw on top of that name, image, and likeness, and the transfer portal, and the fact that every player on your team has the right to instantaneously transfer out, and that was never the case before. You couldn't transfer inside the conference. You had to go through the thing and set out 1 year and then go. I mean, just like I cannot imagine what it's like trying to build a depth chart right now. I mean, before you used to be able to recruit guys, and we got this guy, and he'll be here in 2 years. This guy will be here in 3 years, and let's sit this guy here 1 year, and let's do that. Man, you can't do that anymore. And so you're constantly having to massage egos and parents and advisors and boosters who anteed up the NIL money for that player to come to your school. I mean, the complexity of the job right now, I don't think people understand how difficult a job it is to kind of manage all this. And then for Ryan Day, then you throw on top of that, I'm going to be the primary play caller and the CEO of this organization on top of all these other things that I'm doing here. And it's just a Herculean task. So, we just got to be careful what we wish for, because we can do a lot worse than Ryan Day. We can do a lot worse than Ryan Day. And I had not heard of Ryan Day before we'd hired Ryan Day. So I'm sure there's other people that I haven't heard of that'd be equally as good. But I'm having a hard time coming up with a realistic name that I'd rather have than Ryan Day. And I'm talking about anybody in the world other than, cistless Urban Meyer. Seriously. I mean, I don't know who it would be. I'm serious. I don't have a name.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at. I mean, like I said, Urban is not a spring chicken anymore. I mean, he's 60s now. Like I said, when he took over in 12, he was 51. So he had a long runway. And the thing about Urban, man, is Urban burns hot. So he does not, his shelf life is not real long pretty much anywhere, because he's so maniacal and he's so hardcore, and he's so, he's like driving the Ferrari 250 miles an hour. Like, and, like, you could do that for a little bit, but the thing's eventually going to blow up or run out of gas or something. And that's kind of what it's like with Urban. And like, I love him to death, but you can't keep that fervor up for long because it kills you. It exhausts you. It's like, he knows what it is around here. Like, you can't lose to Michigan. You can't, I mean, I think for him, like, he's like kind of loving that I walked out, 62-35, whatever that last game, and chilling. Now he gets to, he's making $2 million a year to go sit on Fox and, talk about all these other coaches and stuff. Like, I mean, he's already got money in the bank. Like, he doesn't need anything. And he's got, like, I mean, if you told me I could make $2 million to sit at Fox and just work, 50 days a year instead of, oh, by the way, you got to go deal about this third string quarterback who just got offered $50,000 to transfer to Kentucky or some craziness like that. Like, Urban, like, I just don't think he wants to deal with that. I mean, again, there's like, we have backups on our current team that have real NIL offers from other schools to transfer there. So, it's not like your top guys are getting pillaged. I mean, your depth is getting pillaged. And then you have to counterattack and go after starters and players. And, you got to hope you can scrape together enough money for not just the recruiting class, but the transfer portal. I mean, like this kid from Washington State, I mean, his room, he's got $1 million deals on the table to transfer to big time programs as quarterback. And it's probably believable. Like, I've heard what like CJ Stroud made and some of these guys made. So, I think that it's fascinating that, it's so much more work than it was, when Urban left the game. And that wasn't that long ago. It was 5 years. It's 2018. It's 5 years ago. But I'm telling you, like, now that these kids with NIL, these kids literally all have agents. They're represented by the biggest agencies in the world, Athletes First, CAA, the agencies you normally could associate with like the top round quarterbacks in the league and the top tackles and top receivers. Like, they're represented by those guys right now because, they can't negotiate a contract now, but they can negotiate marketing deals. So they're the marketing representation with the thought that on the back end, they're going to get to be the player rep for their contract. Like, I mean, like Brandon Inniss and Cardinal Tate have Drew Rosenhaus as an agent right now, which 5 years ago would have been completely illegal, completely wrong, completely whatever. But now it's legal, and guys like Drew that are really smart, they're like, hey, I'll help you with these deals. I won't take a cut of them. And it's all, working towards the fact that, hey, when you come to the league, I'm going to be your guy, and so you build that consistency because, if you get a $10,000 deal, like, Drew doesn't need 35% of that to get his bagel in the morning or whatever it is. So, but that's kind of how these guys get their claws in, and it's smart because you build that relationship. So, I mean, these high school kids are getting recruited by like CAA and these mega agencies, and it's, again, like 5 years ago, this was totally legal, craziness, ineligible, and now it's just like, welcome to 2023. D Sonny, my man, you're in here every night. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for the 5. How important is winning to the school's money? I would think that enrollment rises when schools have a great football team. I mean, it's paramount. I think that, when we won a national championship, it's like Alabama is like, there's kids from like Ohio. There's like sorority girls from Ohio that want to go to Bama now because the football team's good and the sororities are crazy. And, and like, I think Bama, when I was going to school I don't know anybody from my county that went to Bama, but now like, that's like a hot school because of, Clemson. When football is on the rise, because football is kind of the face of every major college except for, the Ivy League schools. And, I think it helps athletic donations. I think it helps hospital donations. I think it helps enrollment. I think they can raise prices because more people want to go there. But I mean, Nevada, I'm probably saying the stuff that you already know, but I think it's unbelievable the amount of impact that a successful football team can have on a university, because it's like a major point of pride for everybody everywhere they go when they wear that sweatshirt that says Ohio State or Bama, or like, think about Georgia the last few years. Like, Georgia didn't win anything for 30 years. They won the last 2. So everybody wants to go to Georgia now. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, just, I mean, enrollment goes up, giving goes, it's a lot easier to go out and get it, gifts to the university coming off a successful football season or heaven forbid a national championship. And when you see that happen, the business of college football is so good, and it's been so one-sided for the colleges for so long that now the players are kind of jumping in, and as you say, on top of that, following that are the agents, because look, the agents only make 2%, 3% on a contract, but they'll make 20, 25% on an NIL deal. And these
Yeah.
NIL, some of these NIL deals are $1 million or $2 million or $3 million. So that, from an agent standpoint, that's real money now. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So you take 20% on that, that's $200,000. That's what you make on a great NFL player's contract. So that those things are not insignificant anymore. But so much money's flowing around here, and you've got these guys that are have to be responsible for it all, and guys like Ryan Day, and that's why they make $10 million a year or whatever it is, because they drive the bus, man. They drive the bus that leads to riches on about 19 different levels, and when they lose, they got to take the heat as well. So it's a huge responsibility.
Well, and I think that, when you're someone who's looking to advertise your product, I think you get more cachet if you use a college athlete, because I think that there's a lot more um, appeal to support like a college. Like, like if CJ Stroud is endorsing something in his Ohio State jersey, I think it means more than if he's endorsing something in his Houston Texans jersey. I just think that people have this natural pull towards the colleges that they support. And I think that, the other benefit to, like, if you're an advertiser, is you can get those kids for way cheaper than you can get like Pat Mahomes or Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is making $50 million a year. So it's like, if you want to get him to go do a DirecTV commercial or a Hulu Live Sports or whatever commercial, like, you got to pay him like some proximity that would make him get off the couch. Where a college kid, who's like scraping for quarters out of the couch to order a pizza, you don't have to pay nearly as much. I mean, you can get like, I mean, the NIL deals that I knew of and saw, like, they were really cheap, and we got good players, and we got superstar running back, superstar quarterback, and didn't really cost us that much money, and we got massive exposure for it. So I don't know. Like I said, I think it's interesting how it works. Again, I like that the kids get a little bit of money now because they don't have to, again, I lived from the frame of a single mom, didn't have a lot to rub together money wise. And all of a sudden, if you get a couple of NIL deals, you can pay for mom to fly to the games and not sleep at the Motel 6 and stay at a decent hotel. Like, I mean, that's not bad. I don't feel bad about these kids being able to take care of their parents. And I think it really helps Ohio State if they want to get, these kids from Miami, because now all of a sudden they can fly mom up and they can get a 2-bedroom apartment that's comfortable. So if mom and little sister wants to come up for the weekend, they got somewhere to sleep and stay, and they don't have to get a hotel room, and you get a little bit nicer furnishings and nicer everything. So again, I love NIL. I think it's awesome for the kids. I wish that I had it, but I don't, and I'm okay. We're okay. We're at the Scoop. Nevada, as we'll get this thing wrapped up pretty quick here. What does the next week look like for the Buckeyes? I think that, the interesting thing right now is, when you get smacked in the face and you lose to Michigan, all of a sudden you go from planning on, getting ready for Iowa and game prep and practice to it's like the great white nothing, where there's just no, it's like the infinite winter where there's just nothing going on until, selection, Sunday night or Sunday morning or whatever, they pick out what bowl game they're going to. I know there's a lot of players in the Woody Hayes that want to know what's going on, what's their standing on the team. I think there's going to be a good amount of guys that enter the portal. I think that has nothing to do with losing to Michigan. I just think that's how modern college football is. There's always going to be 5 to 25 guys that could enter the portal any given winter. What does the next week look like for Ohio State?
Well, look, first of all, I just have to say, when everything changes because of one play, like at the end, let's think about the Notre Dame game. The Notre Dame game comes down to one play at the end where Notre Dame has 10 players on the field, and we run Chip, and Chip makes it by a foot or whatever he made it in. And Ohio State was courageous, and Ohio State wanted it more, and Ohio State persevered and, was tough. And then we go to Michigan, and Carson steps on Donnie's foot, and Donnie falls down or trips and spills the guy into Kyle's lap, so he can't deliver the ball, because if he delivers that ball, Marvin probably scores or gets inside the 10. And then all this stuff that I hear about, the big win and the perseverance, and like, if everything can change on one play, like the entire narrative can change on one play, you have to really kind of take a step back and look at kind of the absurdity of the entire thing right there. Like, we were close, guys. We were really, really close to having it done. It didn't happen, but that doesn't change the fact that how close we were. We didn't get beat 65-0. This wasn't a blowout. This wasn't a shellacking. We aren't in shambles. You know, it's just we came up short in a game in a game that has a certain amount of randomness to it. The wheel of awful, hit us a couple of times and we lost the game. So from a fan's perspective, just don't buy into these absurd, generalizations about Michigan's tougher, Michigan's more perseverant, Michigan's no, it just spun that way this time, and that's what happened. As for this week, I'm watching the portal just to see what names are kind of floating out there because I know, Ohio State's seeing what's out there. They're seeing what's out there in the market right now. And look, I'm just continuing to think good thoughts about the playoff because I think we've got a really good shot at making the playoff. And that, again, that might be a minority view, but I've been around college football for a long time. I've seen a lot crazier things. I mean, we lost by 3 scores last year at home to Michigan and ended up making the playoff. And this year we end up losing by 1 score on the road to number 2 Michigan. I think we've got a shot. I just have a feeling this weekend is going to be crazy. And I'm looking forward to kind of the craziness and seeing where Ohio State is standing at the end of the weekend.
Yeah, and I'm going to break this play down one more time for those of you guys that didn't see it last night. Again, you look at the footwork. Again, Carson is setting to the right because they've got a nose guard, they've got a 3 technique, and they've got an end. And then they've got an end. And then they've got a linebacker who's mugged up, like kind of drawing Donnie's attention. So this is a really funky front because normally you put the nose guard – normally you'd have the nose guard here and you'd have your 3 technique and your end, but they do this to kind of throw some eye candy out there to confuse the front. And again, it wasn't ultra confusing because this linebacker stays here and holds the guard's attention for a millisecond, but then he's out of there, and then the nose is crossing over to Donnie, and they're running a twist. So this nose is coming from a 1 technique here all the way over here to loop outside. After this end picks, so this end is doing they call it an E. This would be an EN because this is a nose, this is an end. The end takes a step and then he goes in and he tries to pick Donnie, which he does, and then the nose wraps around. So you watch this and like Donnie, like I don't like Donnie's feet. I think he's too upright when he makes contact here. He's a little too soft. But the thing that kills him is that Carson, and again, this isn't Carson's fault. This is just part of offensive line play when you're playing with these tight splits. Carson is he's looking for work and he's trying to work back over to help, and he just happens to put his foot behind Donnie, when Donnie's in the worst possible spot. And again, like part of it is Donnie literally gets tripped by both feet. I mean, you look here and here, it's like a double trip. This is like a WWF like finishing move. So Josh steps on his foot, which you can see clear as day, and then Carson with this foot like trips him. So, I mean, this is like impossible right here. This is like a 1 in a billion thing where it's like your guard happens to get tripped by the tackle and then he gets tripped by the center at the same time. So it's like he's on roller skates. So people are like, oh, he got his butt kicked. And I'm like, this is just terrible luck. But anyways, so Simmons passes this off. And he could be more physical on this nose. But he gets them past. Again, it's not the nose, the nose gets pushed, but it's the guy that, Donnie again gets tripped by both guys. So he's on the ground. But, you see, this is Marv right here. I mean, Marv's breaking. I mean, if he could, again, God bless Kyle. But, like, sometimes I'm like, dude, like, just step right here and just throw a dart. Again, it's easy for me to say that sitting here. But, like, scooch over and throw. I mean, but, again, he's looking it down. He has no feel for over here. Again, it is what it is at this point. But if he steps in and whizzes this ball in here to Marv, I mean, Marvin could split those guys and go to the crib. And then all of a sudden, Ryan Day's tough, and Jesse Minter isn't a total douchebag, and we're happy, and we're the 1 seed in the playoffs. But that's football, guys, and this is part of the gig. It's a game of inches, and honestly, to be real, it's a game of luck. I mean, sometimes you need some luck to go your way in a situation like that. So, well, final thoughts, Nevada. Again, a great show again as always. But final thoughts, and we'll wrap this thing up.
Just going to disagree with you one more time. No, Jesse Minter would still be a douchebag even if we'd completed that. So
he really would be. It's hilarious, Oh man, that is a fact. That is an absolute fact. All right, well, we'll wrap that thing up on that note. Appreciate you guys kicking it with us as always. Thank you guys for being a part of the show. Again, great show. BuckeyeScoop.com has been absolutely on fire today. If you guys aren't members, you need to join it. There's a lot of buzz in the Woody Hayes right now. We're breaking it down on BuckeyeScoop.com. Everything we're hearing, all of the rumors, all the buzz. So we appreciate you guys as always. Thank you for the super chats as well. Again, those are huge for us. They help build the channel. Scoop Ultra is going great. We got a ton of new members over the last week. So if you want to really support the channel, join Scoop Ultra. We're going to do Scoop Ultra chats probably once a month, or is this going to be like the few Ultra members that we got? And we're just going to let it rip and have a good time and answer all your questions. So appreciate you guys. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click the little alert bell. We're going about 7 o'clock every night, so you guys can kind of get it in your mind that we're going to be here ready to rock and have a good time with you guys. So as always, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. I will see you on the message boards on BuckeyeScoop.com. Go Bucks.